What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video by yours truly. I wanted to talk to you guys about the 2.6 story now that I've fully completed it. I've went back and analyzed a number of scenes, segments, dialogues. I've went back and watched it all just to refresh my memory even further and talk about some of my sentiments on how this story was delivered. I would say majority of the story was actually very enjoyable, not only from a dialogue perspective, but also from a presentation perspective, with the exception of the middle part. And I understand that some of you guys are in disagreement with this, which I think once I explain my own thoughts on it, it'll make much more sense why a lot of us thought that shit was mid. But regardless of whether you agree or disagree, understand that, hey, your experience is your experience and other people's experience is theirs. You don't have the right to go and tell them that they're wrong for how they feel about a story. That just makes you a narcissistic fucking moron. At the end of the day, everyone has their own experience. You don't have the right to get upset because somebody else's experience didn't align with yours. It's just like pure foolishness, like you clown nose. Anyways, I do want to walk through all of these events from start to finish so that you guys can kind of understand my rough draft of thoughts of why this story is question mark out of 10. I guess we'll rate it at the very end. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start off. I think the very beginning of the story was quite literally like a 10 out of 10 for me. It started off incredibly strong, running into Augusta, going into the chamber, and you have that cinematic, like beautiful moment where she's sitting on the throne, just looking like an absolute fucking queen boss bitch. And she throws that blade at you in a like very smooth, flamboyant fashion. You saw it. I don't have to go through it. That was one of the most beautiful ways to like introduce the ruler of Septimont. And I think that's something that is worthy of praise. It's the fact that Augusta as a character embodies the very definition of what it means to be a king, a queen, a ruler. You know, you got to walk with bravado. You got to walk with confidence, passion, and conviction. And you also have to speak that way, which, speaking of which, her voice actor is absolutely godly. I am a fan of that voice actor because she quite literally embodies the aura and demeanor of how a ruler should speak. When you look at Augusta, she is pretty much somebody that is the female equivalent of Leonidas from 300. Shout out to my brother James for giving me that reference because it's a perfect reference. She really is. Leonidas is somebody who has such a chivalrous personality to him. And he's actually quite a like very positive and uplifting guy. But then there's that other side of him that's just an absolute savage. And I think Augusta is pretty much kind of like a parallel to that personality. So when you first meet her, you get that immediately. And then they deliver you with the thing that I see in anime that never gets tiresome. And that is the strong people who greet you with combat. They greet you with an exchange of blows to get to like test your I guess who you are as a person. You know, I love that. I never get tired of seeing it in anime. It's always a joy to see. I'm an edgy type of guy too with what I enjoy watching, especially combat wise. That was a 10 out of 10 opener. I was just like, oh my God, I already know this story's gonna be fucking amazing. I'm hyped, I'm pumped. Augusta is easily one of the most goated characters, bro. I love her, I'll be honest. Now, apart from that though, it wasn't just the like Marvel finish or the Marvel opener, the cinematic shit with the flamboyant moves and stuff. She immediately starts telling you about the things that are making this story important as of now, which is the hunting grounds. Why are we even going there? What's the purpose of it? And what is the overall like goal of this? And then she explains that to you. There's no time being wasted here. There's no like really wasted dialogue. You're learning her personality and simultaneously learning why you guys have to go to the hunting grounds. And that's something that's important to stay on top of that linear progression of the overarching plot, which just the TLDR for people who just don't keep up with the story. You're going to the hunting grounds because there's this blight cloud that like hovers over it, and it's kind of baked into Septimonian culture. Kind of like this gives me a respect for the Septimonian people because this is something that was a real problem, life-threatening, region-threatening, and they turned it into a cultural like kind of event where they have to go out and save their goddamn land by pushing off the dark tide, repelling the dark tide by taking their most powerful warriors and going to this place that they named the hunting grounds, where they pretty much repel the dark tide. In addition to this, I also love that Augusta explains to you that the Earthrend's Wedge, I believe is the name of the place, is where the Sentinel descended. And that's literally the biggest reason of why the Septimonians have been able to defend off the dark tide at the hunting grounds. It's because the Sentinel's relic has a power that pretty much gives like a bulwark to this area, preventing the Blight Cloud from releasing basically dark tide, I guess, negative energy into the lands and corrupting it entirely. It still does that, but the bulwark protection that the Sentinel's relic has placed upon the land allows the Septimonians to not just be completely overran by that corruption. I guess you can think of it as like a bit of a bottle cap. Corruption still leaks out of the bottle cap, but if you were to remove the bottle cap entirely, then dark tide, energy would just fucking flood all of Septimon. So that's pretty much what like we learned from that conversation. But that just goes to show you that once again, no dialogue was really wasted. Beginning was kind of like honestly a 10 out of 10 for me. And now I want to go into the next segment, which is going to be the hunting grounds. You meet Augusta on the top of the cliff. You guys jump off to the cinematic scene where you're on the griffins and stuff. I thought this was once again something that's worth acknowledging too. The presentation of the cutscenes was very impressive to me because they weren't cutscenes that were like full-blown adaptations. In fact, to the contrary, it was just in-game graphics rendered to the point where you're like, holy shit, well, how does it look that good? This isn't even a cutscene. This is just the in-game graphics, right? So that was cool because you see a lot of those moments. In fact, the majority of cutscenes in 2.6 aren't adaptations. I think there's only like one. So that's a cool thing. But apart from that, when you land in the hunting grounds, this was another area that I very much enjoyed. There were some like lore exposition dumps like here and there. I felt like they were being a bit too detailed with things that were going on, but that's subjective. At the end of the day, they were telling you so much lore about how the Septimonian culture functions in these hunting grounds. And I think anybody who enjoys like getting a well-rounded picture of how things operate in terms of world building in Septimont are just going to appreciate that. For some of us, we're like, a little bit too much details. And for others, they're like, oh, that was perfect, and I can respect either way. Anyways, to summarize up the hunting grounds as a whole, I think there's a lot of character development here with Augusta and Yuno, and then Augusta, Yuno, and Rover. And then there's also Avidius, who is actually one of my characters that I enjoyed the most in 2.6 because he's like kind of an oddball that was thrown in there, and his NPC design's pretty sick, right? But like, he's a great character, good virtue, good integrity, and has his own convictions. But he's portrayed, at least from Yuno's perspective, as somebody who can't be trusted, and she's always sour towards him, which kind of like can lead the viewer or the guy who's consuming this story to think, oh, fuck this guy. But that's actually the furthest thing. He's actually a really cool guy, which is interesting. And the only reason that Yuno is being sour towards him is because she has the power to like, divination pretty much, which we do learn later on that she kind of gave that up, but her intuition has still got that like godly divination inside of it. So even intuitively, she's like, something's off about this guy, which as you continue through the story, you learn what's off about him. It's the fact that he's tied to Cristoforo. And he's been created by Cristoforo. So obviously she can't get a read on him because of that. So I understand that. But the thing is, the character development in the hunting grounds while you're doing the overall objective is actually pretty damn good. You learn who everyone else is and who they are and what their role is in the story. The real gripes that I had is that Lupa was nowhere to be seen here. And I just think there is no excuse in the world to justify Lupa not being at an event so pivotal as saving Septimont from being swallowed by the dark tide and a hunting grounds when Lupa quite literally loves hunting. She is a hunter. Damn, she hunts. She fucking sniffs and shit. She's like a wolf, bro. There is no reason for Lupa to not be in that story other than she would take up too much presence. She would take away from the value of the characters they're trying to sell you right now, which is Augusta, Yuno, and Galbrina later on. It's like putting Lupa inside of this scenario would diminish from you being so encapsulated by Augusta and Yuno. That's the only reason why. It's pure gacha debuff. It's like, oh, we sold this character, fuck them. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that she won't pop up maybe later on, but there's just no fucking legitimate reason for her to not be involved in this story versus that there alone. That was one of my like few gripes about the hunting grounds. Other than that, I loved that it had this Jurassic Park / Monster Hunter vibe to it. It was really cool getting to see some Monster Hunter like Easter eggs too, like you're tracking the fucking Corosaurus through the woods, the Tyrannosaurus and stuff. I also enjoyed the music that was attached to this area, and I even felt, and I don't know if this was just me, even a bit of Greek presence as you were exploring through these hunting grounds. Kind of felt like Kratos going through Olympus sometimes, where you would just see like Augusta or Rover like battling off these damn Corosaurus, I don't know how to fucking pronounce it, Corosaurus that were like coming out of nowhere on top of the Tyrannosaurus damn thing, which looked like Glavenus from Monster Hunter. Let's just be honest, it was Glavenus. I was joking in stream basically saying these motherfuckers did a Monster Hunter collab without the approval of Capcom. But yeah, I would say the most enjoyable thing about this part is learning about the lore, because you learn how the Dark Tide spawns in enemies, created the Tyrannosaurus monster that's hunting you guys and works for the Dark Tide. It's I think they referred to it as like, I don't know, like a general or something. That's not the correct term, but that Tyrannosaurus is essentially like a pretty like high up the ladder entity that comes from the Dark Tide. You also understand that the Earthwind's Edge is essential to severing the link between the Dark Tide and the Thermodian. You learn about the anchor points and how they can help prevent Dark Tides like entities from spawning in. So you got to strategically set them up around there. I think this was like lore nerds paradise, because there was just a lot of things that explain the world building. And then in the midst of you learning all of this, you're also seeing those whispers going to Augusta's ears, which I feel like that is intrigue in and of itself, because you're starting to wonder like, okay, how the hell is whispers going into a Septimont person's ear? They don't have an attachment to the divinity. And I think that is another plot actually, because what we're learning about the Dark Tide is that the Thermodian isn't just a Thermodian of divinity that can corrupt people who have faith in the Sentinel. There's also, I think, Thermodians who can just like corrupt anybody damn near, honestly, because they called this thing the false sovereign in the hunting grounds, which I view that, me personally, I interpret it as a separate Thermodian. And that Thermodian can corrupt people like, even if they don't have faith in the Sentinel, which is crazy to me, because now you see that the Dark Tide is I guess an antagonist in and of itself, and an opposing force that can pretty much be problematic in all facets of world building and Wuthering Waves. Continuing on though with more pivotal elements of the hunting grounds, the next pivotal element is the hottest element, Yuno. And you know that she's the finest girl in the goddamn game. You know, I know, we all know, goddammit. You know, oh, she's so sexy, man. Let's just be honest here. And if you're somebody who's like, oh my God, like, wow, you're gooning over Yuno, man, you need to realize that you're not the target audience, okay? The self-inserts are the target audience. That's the whole purpose of gacha gaming, period. That's the fundamental foundation there. We want to give the people who never leave their rooms, who don't have girlfriends, who are unemployed, all right, let me stop going too hard. My bad, bro. My bad. I'm going too hard on y'all. We want to give them a self-insert experience. And so fan service, whether you like it or not, that is something that's going to exist in gacha games until the ends of time, because it's a part of delivering that aspect to fulfill the target audience's craving. Okay, so I'm just throwing that out there. So Yuno was a very important piece of the hunting grounds too. One, because she's hot as shit. She gives the proper amount of fan service to the rover, which you're thinking you're the rover. You know, they're showing off her hot ass body a lot. She's winking at you. She's doing little cute faces and stuff. You might find this as like a joke, but it's actually very important. It even refreshes the mind waning from consuming so much dialogue. She actually was very important in that regard. Even Augusta would do little, very subtle fan servicey things from time to time, but they wouldn't do it too much because that kind of cuts into who her character is. But apart from that, Yuno was also a very pivotal piece to the overarching story, because she's a divination god, right? Well, not a god, but a character in the story, and she's telling you pretty much like all the things that you have to look out for. She's explaining to you like the prophecy and the murals. She's also telling you like how there's this like this unwritten fate attached to you, how you can pretty much carve your own destiny. She's pretty much like walking you guys through the confidence of overcoming this Dark Tide trying to corrupt Septimon. She's a very important piece. And I love her voice actor too. I think her voice actor is really good. Her personality also has a perfect amount of sass to it to keep people like entertained. She was really good. I'm gonna be honest. I think anytime Yuno entered the story to present herself, it was just a joy to see, whether it be fan service, lore exposition, or just absolute character development between her, Augusta, or the Rover, or her being an absolute asshole to Avidius. All of these things were very enjoyable to watch, and it even added to the overarching like story development. Hell, I also like how you learn about her resonance ability and how she got it. There's some point during the hunting grounds where she tells you that she traded her ability to see into fate for the ability to resist the dark tide. That's some like crazy revelation there, because what that means is she can no longer like see what's gonna happen. She kind of just relies on intuition at this point, and that's not enough, especially when you still have the Fraxidus to deal with. She no longer has that ability, right? On top of that, she even explains to you how she takes away from her own life to use her ability to like defend off the dark tide, which that's kind of wild. Kind of even a lot of people are speculating that because of that, maybe that kind of foreshadows that she could die in the future, which I don't necessarily agree with that. We're still playing a gacha game. They have yet to kill anybody. Even Frolova didn't die. Frolova's still alive. So although I would like to see that, we also still need a bit more character development out of her for her death to be even meaningful at this point. Anywho, to summarize it up, I thought this was still a very well presented like story, as well as the dialogue in terms of lore. I think the beginning was a 10 out of 10, and then this part was like probably like anywhere from an 8.5 to like a 9 out of 10, because there were some moments where you just like suffering from the gacha dialogue, right? Put some characters there, watch them yap. It's just they happen to be hot, so it's a bit better. That was still a pretty good part. It wasn't until we got to what was called Murmur's Town. I think that's what they call it. And this happened to be a place, if I'm being honest, after Dark Tide corruption, looked like actually new land that they put into the game. But it just kind of looked like they took some assets from Septimon and just put them there and called it Murmur's Town, which I think kind of disrupted a bit of the immersion experience of you going into the Sonoro sphere that takes you back in to the past of Augusta. Which, by the way, when you go inside of the Sonoro sphere at the time, you don't know it's Augusta until you start locking in on the dialogue. The dialogue progresses between these two children, and you start to say, hey, you know what, that voice, that accent sounds a bit familiar. You know what, I think that's Augusta. But this is where a lot of points were taken, because you got to understand, guys, and a lot of gacha stories struggle from this. Wuthering Waves does a phenomenal job, but even Wuthering Waves struggles from this too. There are times where the dialogue is actually good. This is quite literally the problem with Hoyo storytelling in HSR and Genshin Impact. The dialogue they're throwing at you is very meaningful, but what they are presenting to you is ass. You know what I'm saying? And right here, anybody who is honest with themselves will admit the quality of presentation as well as the budget for storytelling, it collapsed and declined at this point of the story. You cannot say they maintained the same level of budget for presentation at this point. You just cannot. You're lying to yourself. It fell off here. It turned into it went from Wuthering Waves cinema storytelling that we're used to honestly a little smidge notch above HSR storytelling. Put two characters there and watch them yap. Dialogue's good, but they're just sitting. You're like, grab some popcorn, bro. Just sit down. Movie theater at this point. You're just third party watching two people yap. And the thing that sucks about this is like it's a narrative trying to portray very like emotional trauma and catharsis like moments. These are like moments that are very significant to understanding Augusta's backstory as well as Angel's, and like you're trying to like really like immerse yourself into what's occurring. But what's being shown is two kids inside of reused assets. At least it looks like it from my personal perspective. The town doesn't look like a town like from back in the day that Augusta and Angel grew up in. It just looked like some reused assets from the current day Septima. And I think that also took away from the disruption of immersion. And guys, if you want tangible examples, it would be so much better if what the little kids were doing and talking about as they were doing their character development was actually shown in the way that what Frolova's backstory was shown when you went inside of her Sonorosphere. They were like showing multiple artistic segments of how Frolova looked and she was innocent. They were showing off that. That was so much easier to digest than just watching two hollows talk. And I understand the purpose of the hollow. I understood it in the first playthrough. I was like, once I realized that Angel was Galbrina, and I realized it in the first playthrough, I called it out too. I was like, oh my God, wait, hold up. That's fucking Galbrina, bro. Like, she lost control of herself. She's not even like recognized as a human anymore. That's what Augusta was saying. I was like, dude, that's fucking Galbrina. It made sense then. Okay, they did the hologram thing because they didn't want to give away who these two characters were. They kind of wanted that to be more of a surprise and kind of let you figure that out through the essence of the dialogue. I get that, but there still was a much better way to present this shit as opposed to what you did. Because here's the thing, you can also like show off these children playing in the background with art, as you did with that one picture with little kid Augusta, but still block out the faces. You can like blur out the faces, but still show everything else in a high quality presentation format so people can stay immersed and still be like, damn, who are these kids? You could still figure it out. You guys just chose the most shit way to do so. And that kind of caused people to be like, there were moments where I was like, the music is bussing. The music is definitely trying to show off this emotional moment. But what you're showing me is just kind of ass, brother. It's not matching the tone of the music at all. The dialogue is matching it. The music is matching it. But what I'm looking at isn't matching it. Hell, there was even one point where I was staring at a fucking wall. I had PTSD from 3.0. Back of the head of, what's her name? The first, the Chrysos Air, talking about some important stuff, but I'm looking at a fucking waterfall. Augusta's just staring at the wall while a very significant and like serious moment is happening where Augusta, the kid Augusta's like, oh my God, Angel, you're bleeding or some shit like that. I'm like, brother, what is happening right now? Am I playing HSR? Am I playing HSR right now? Oh, and there was another thing that was really annoying me. When you had to go out of the Sonorosphere, kill some random ass run-of-the-mill Tacits Discords, click this thing and then go back in the Sonorosphere to continue talking or watching two kids yap. This was so mundane. And the problem with this is it adds to my argument here. It was actually a meaningful portrayal of a narrative that is pivotal to the whole thing, which was you're trying to get back Augusta's memories by doing this act. And Augusta's memories are returning so that you can go back in the Sonorosphere and continue to peel back the layers of her past. What was portrayed, the mechanism to do this was just you leaving the Sonorosphere, fighting some fucking enemies, clicking a thing and then going back in. This is what I mean by what's being presented and what you're doing doesn't line up with the significance of what's occurring. They could have actually showed off memories like going back into the head. It could have been more budget added to this, but no, it was, hey bro, leave the Sonorosphere, go kill some random mobs, come back. That's another thing that's going to be hard for people to immerse and like take serious. They probably won't even like register what they're doing. Actually, they're just gonna be like, okay, fuck, I just went out and killed some random mobs. I think all of these arguments and examples that I'm showing you right now is the very definition of why people just didn't enjoy this part of the story. And it wasn't that good. I'm gonna be honest. It was like a 4 out of 10, I would say. But apart from that like massive flaw, there was a lot of important shit revealed in that backstory, which is how people get confused in terms of like, oh, well, I thought it was good. I thought it was good too. It was just shit presentation, my guy. It's mind waning on the brain, but we learned some important stuff, such as Angel was the whole goal of the Dark Tide way back when she was just a little girl, which goes to show just how strong Galbrina probably is. If the Dark Tide was after her when she was just a little freaking sapling, my God, she had a lot of potential back then, and she's been corrupted or swallowed whole, I guess, by the Dark Tide on her own. And then you like speed up to the ending of 2.6, how she looks now. It's like, wow, she's probably a fucking monster. Probably strong as hell. And how's her like mental doing? Is she like okay? Does she have one of those crazy like One, like, I grew up on my own situations and she somehow overcame the dark tide and made it her own power, or is she just completely cooked and being controlled and manipulated by the dark tide and whispers got ahead of her? We don't know, but like that was lore and information that was revealed in Murmur's town with that shit presentation. Very good stuff. Augusta, as well as her relationship with Angel, all revealed in Murmur's town. Very good stuff. I think you guys get what I'm saying. Yes, there was good stuff there, enjoyable dialogue to consume, but everything else was like, man, this is rough. Outside of that, moving on to the next and final part, this was like the end kind of 2.6. This is where we end up, and I did skip some details, like when you fight the Tyrannosaurus at that one spot that you defeat it, and you have to defeat it near Earthrend's wedge. That's like the circumference where the bulwark is, and it counts towards repelling dark tide. Another lore thing. I'm skipping that entirely. That was also a really good part. But you get to the part where you fight the false sovereign again, right? And bro, the cutscene afterwards, bro uppercuts Avidius into the goddamn Netherrealm. I think he uppercuts Navidius into an area that Avidius was not supposed to ever go. And this is kind of revealed and hinted at when Cristoforo at the very end says, ooh, my near perfect protagonist, even I didn't even see this shit coming. Oh, wow. But do I get rid of you now, or do I just let the story go? No, you know what? I'm going to let it play through. That was Cristoforo basically saying that he wasn't expecting Avidius to like kind of get his memory back, or kind of realize that he's probably a creation, that, and he's not actually even a real person, which, oof, you know, that stings. And when you go up to Avidius later on and he's like on the ground, kind of like he's kind of lost his fucking mind a bit. He's trying to find his bearings, and he's like, dude, Main's Deep doesn't even fucking exist. My memories, what the hell? He's coming to grips with himself, and I think that was not something Cristoforo not only expected to happen, but wanted to happen. But him being the psychotic, obsessed storytelling guy he is, he's not even tripping. He's like, oh, fuck it. It adds to the value of the story. That's my goat, bro. I love Cristoforo. That, at this point, the presentation of what you're looking at, as well as the dialogue and music, it all goes back to a good quality. Once we get to the ending, it was another 10 out of 10 experience. That song, I don't even know what the hell they're chanting, but my God, it's so fucking good, man. That song was fire. The boss song where you fight False Sovereign for the final time, that shit was a banger, bro. I really enjoyed it. The cinema experience with what's her name, Augusta, getting swallowed going into that dark tide, but then she like comes out, punches it. All of that was absolutely beautiful. It was the Marvel finish. That's what they're good at doing. Sure, it was good. But, and this is a big one, I have some gripes with this ending. And it ties into the thing I've been complaining about this entire time. A moron will tell me that I'm a Rover hater, but a wise guy will say Smack's got a very strong point here. And that is, I can no longer take anything that happens in this story seriously when you have a walking plot armor known as the Rover. Case in point, it's time and time again, this always happens. Story introduces ultimatums and scenarios and like serious stakes, such as if you do this, pending doom is gonna happen. If you do this, this fate can't be changed and your fate is sealed. Oh, wait, we have a character who is a walking fate changer. This is a perpetual cycle of always being able to save a pending doom scenario. It is a literal like plot armor till the ends of time. It doesn't matter what stakes get brought up. This guy can always change the fate to favor the story in a direction where no sacrifices are made. It's just like, I can't take a story seriously if no consequences ever really actually occur. I just can't. You know what I'm saying? It's just a problem. The closest we got to it was with Frolova, and once again, Frolova didn't even fucking die. It's almost impossible to kill her, as we learned. So the problem I have with how this ended is Augusta and Yuno saw a mural and prophesized that a pending doom was going to happen. It was inevitable. However, on this mural, there was the dark tide and there was the hero, but there was a big blank spot in the middle. This blank spot just so happened to be the Rover, because Rover's fate is unwritten. He is a walking plot armor. He is a walking fate changer. And so with the prophecy from Yuno saying, hey, this guy here is, I can't read his fate, I can't do anything. Oh, he must be the missing piece to this mural. It's a blank spot. That means he fits there perfectly. So no matter what happens, as long as we put him in the middle, as long as we bring him along, it doesn't matter. All is well. Somehow, this shit's gonna turn out well. And then they try to make it crafty and say, oh, I knew it was you because your fate's unwritten. And so like, if I fight you, then I can swap the hero of heroes role over to the Rover. And now I am repelling the Dark Tide's fate placed on me. I don't have to do this shit anymore. Now I can put you on it, and that changes my fate and changes and saves everything. It's like, and some like kid out there is gonna say that this is logical. It doesn't matter if it's logical. It is a cop-out from real severity and consequences. And any fucking adult who has watched any good stories are gonna tell you that's a joke at the end of the day. And that takes away from quality for me. Absolutely. But that said, if you put that aside, it's a cool finish always. It's always a good cinematic finish. And there's some very strong moments, despite that joke of a fucking ending in terms of like real writing, there's still some very strong points in there. I loved how they brought up Augusta's point she told you at the very, very beginning of meeting her in Septimat. She said, hey, the Sentinel didn't have a chair on this ship. Now that what she meant by that is, I never put my faith into the Sentinel. I never once said, oh, my destiny and my fate is in your hands. I never put a chair on my boat for the Sentinel to sit in. And that was a perfect response to when she repelled the Dark Tide, fate-wise, the false sovereign. And it was like, you're gonna face the judgment of the divinity. There was no better response than that response she gave it. And that was why she was able to break out of it when it tried to swallow her. Because like, brother, your power is attached to people having faith in divinity. I have respect for the Sentinel, but I don't have faith in the divinity. My fate is tied to my own power and what I can achieve. And that's how she was able to punch herself out of there. I love that. I thought that was beautifully written. That's not no bullshit. That's not like cheesy or corny. It's perfect because Septimonians don't worship the Sentinel. That's what I call good fucking writing. No bullshit plot armor. It makes sense. And it actually is like, it's genuine, like peak writing, man. You know, it's cool. And then after that, you know, you have your conversation with her. You do the hero of hero exchange shit. I called this. You can go back and watch the previous stories. I don't know, one of the patches, I literally was like, there's only two people who match this hero of heroes title. It has to be Augusta, the fucking ruler of Septimat, or it has to be the Rover. And I may have given, or I said, or it has to be Arsenosa. I was like, it can't be anybody else. And I remember my goofy ass chat talking about it was Lupa, or oh, it's Carthathea. I was like, how the fuck is Carthathea gonna be the hero of heroes of Septimat? She's not even from there. How is Lupa gonna be that? She's not the F4. It has to be Augusta, or it has to be the Rover, because he's literally the hero of heroes. So like, I called that, but it's still annoying when like Rover is like inserted into Augusta's heroic story, because she quite literally, unlike him, clawed her way to the top with no innate power. She straight up had the shittest resonant powers, if you listen to the story, and she climbed to the top off of sheer fucking willpower, perseverance, brute strength, and just putting her head down and getting to work. Like, she deserved that title alone, bro. You know what I'm saying? And that's my sentiments on that. But at the end of the day, it makes perfect sense that Rover is a hero of heroes. I just don't think you even had to mention that. All you had to do was just give her flowers and let her have that moment. All of that said, I loved all of the overarching fucking plots. This is where we're gonna wrap everything up. The overarching plots that they left and that they spent the whole first half of 2.6 building up is how you know the second half should be insane. It should be, because there's a number of plots they just built up. Plot number one, Cristofaro once again confirming that he created Avidius and that he didn't expect Avidius to do what he did. That's plot number one. Plot number two, Carthathea and Galbrina. We now know that Galbrina had a rough fucking background, got swallowed by the dark tide. I don't know if she's a good person or a bad person now, because it kind of looks like she's a bad person. It kind of looks like she's probably been like completely engulfed by dark tide, even though she looks hot, looks functional. She's probably getting whispered to. And so I don't think she's coming in as this like vigilante hero to take out the Ternodian. I think she might just be getting cooked by and influenced by the dark tide. This is very much a possibility. That's plot hole number 2. Plot hole number 3, we still don't know what the hell Fraxidus is doing. They haven't revealed their hand at all yet. So we're still waiting on Grand Architect and Cristoforo to finally do some crazy shit. I still remember Frolova popping up and creating this big ass like enhanced version of the Mia's Threnodian essence. That's another thing left open. There's a lot of plot holes waiting for the story to like enter that climactic period. So there's a lot of like looking forward to as the story is ever progressing. And I think that is something that's very exciting. I hope the second half of this being revealed doesn't like die down from gacha player brain rot and gacha players short fucking attention span syndrome, where like because it didn't get revealed at the beginning of 2.6, not that many people are going to come back to show up. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But that said, because they saved all of the real exciting stuff to be continued, yeah, this patch for me cannot be rated any higher than a 7. There's no way I can consciously rate it higher than a 7. I don't fall for the hype moments. I grade everything based off of the entirety of what was consumed, and the entirety of what was consumed, although very enjoyable, there was a lot of things about it that were kind of weak. You know, it was cool presentation wise. A lot of these moments, there were some very 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 moments, but there was also some bullshit like plot holes, plot armor moments. And then there was that middle part that was just a fucking disaster in terms of presentation. Me personally, I'm sitting at a 6.5 out of 10, but I'll accept a 7. I think a 7 is also acceptable because at the end of the day, Wuthering Waves has, even its 6.5, 7 out of 10 moments are like 9 out of 10 moments for Hoyo storytelling. You know what I'm saying? But I'm sorry, guys. I don't have tunnel vision. I don't just review stories based off of only looking at Hoyo and how they do things. I look at everything. I don't have tunnel vision for Hoyo, bro. So I'm looking at about 6.5, maybe 7 out of 10. It's funny. I'll read this one. 7 out of 10. Now, you might go a little higher if you enjoy lore exposition dumps, because there was a lot of that dumped in Hunting Grounds into you. Sure, I can respect that. I probably give you another 7.5. I mean, another 0.5 on top of the 7, maybe 7.5. But a 9 out of 10, in my personal opinion, is just like severe fucking like bias. But hey, like I said, I don't force my experience and my thoughts onto other people. That's your experience. Good for you. That's going to wrap up this. I don't know how long I yapped. We'll find out once I edit it all. But yeah, this is going to be my pretty much pseudo story review. It's a rough draft, but hey, boys, it's what I had time to do. So hopefully you enjoy it. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts down below. Of course, be respectful. If not, I'm just going to block you, man. I'll be honest. Thanks for watching. Peace, love, and happiness. Catch you guys on the flip side.